Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined, as always, by Mr. Denny Carter. It is Monday. We can say that since it's the off season. Kind of a slow NFL news week, but one of the biggest news items of the entire off season was finally cleared up with Odell Beckham finding a new home for a shockingly high salary. We will get to that in a minute. We'll also talk about the increased chatter. The Cardinals might be trading the number 3 overall pick. Promising reports on Breece Hall's recovery from his knee injury. Richie James signing with the Kansas City Chiefs, which Denny assures me is the single most important move of the entire offseason. And then we will get to Denny, who never ever stops writing, thankfully for me, and our website has an article on target commanding tight ends, where we're going to talk about Pat Freiermuth, Kyle Pitts, the man they call Chig, and maybe TJ Hawkinson. And even I might force Denny to talk about Darren Waller. But first, Denny, I had a topic. Sometimes we don't have any riffing topics. And then other days there's like 4 things we want to riff about. I wanted to riff about the most egregious tank in recent sports history and what is the shame of the Dallas Mavericks and what they're currently doing, or they have now finished. The NBA regular season is over.
Right.
But then a much more important topic came to mind. And something that was brought up innocently by me, something that admittedly bothered me, but it seemed like it had you in an absolute rage. That is a fashion decision made by prominent sportswear company Nike. Denny, take it from here.
That's right. You look. It came to my attention early in this golf season, and the folks know that I follow golf pretty closely / extremely closely in the off season, in the NFL off season. And for the first 2 or 3 tournaments of the year, I kept seeing guys wearing their shirts backward. Because almost every guy is wearing a Nike shirt, right?
That's what the Zoomers do. They wear their Nike activewear backwards.
Right. And you could go purchase one at your local sports store for $385, the low price. I have one on layaway. I've had it on layaway since January. And, so I'm looking, and there's a Nike swoosh on the back. Okay. So these guys are lined up. They're hunched over their golf ball, and I can see the Nike swoosh, and I'm yelling at the TV, why won't the media talk about these backward shirts? Every dude on this course is wearing a backward shirt. No mention of it. Nothing. Just the weird swoosh on the back, and then you noticed it at the Masters. And
I did.
And it's the worst thing.
I thought it was a factory mistake. Like they did an accidental run, kind of like when they mess up a coin, and then I was figured I could buy the backward swoosh on eBay for $450. And, I'm assuming that that would appreciate then, the way all these sneakers and stuff do. But no, not an error at all. Just a very, very triggering decision from Nike, who I'm now boycotting, Denny. Even though, I'll be honest, I have a lot of Nike activewear, and I will not be boycotting.
I'm going up to my roof, and I'm throwing my Nike shirt off the roof, and it's going to land very softly on the grass, but it's going to learn its lesson, which is, don't do that. Don't put one on the back. It's here's the thing. Nike is not well known enough. The swoosh symbol is not ubiquitous. And
there's not yet another hagiography of the company out just in theaters last weekend called Air, directed by Ben Affleck.
Which I'm being told is not an SNL sketch; it's an actual movie, so we don't get enough swoosh in our lives. The guys have it on their hats. The PGA players have it on their hats. They have it on the front of their shirts. They have it on their golf balls. They have it sometimes on their golf bag, on their shoes, obviously, on their socks. Okay, it's everywhere. But we need one more, folks. We need one more, and Nike is paying someone $2.6 million to come up with the ideas of how. Do we get more swooshes in the faces of the golf viewing public? And I respect them.
We need so many more swooshes. Did you want to talk about the power of branding, by the way? My 4-year-old son recently saw an older boy wearing what he called Adidas shoes and just went on a tear. He had to have some Adidas shoes.
Really?
Mommy, can I please have some Adidas shoes? And it's the first. I have a daughter who's almost 7, and she's never cared about brands or branding before, but all of a sudden my 4-year-old son just had to have a pair of Adidas shoes. So now he has the absolute cutest pair of Velcro Adidas shoes.
I do love when my kids become brand committed. That always makes me feel good as a dad to know that they have pledged their allegiance to a certain brand.
I became a Nike man at a very, very young age, Denny.
Yeah,
very, very young age. I mean, it was like the absolute zenith of Nike marketing, like the mid '90s. And
oh yeah,
I was hook, line, and sinker.
Can I tell you that I actually at that time I was trying to be a Reebok guy just to be contrarian.
Yeah, contrarian, not surprised. Maybe some Fila in there.
Oh yeah. Oh, anything but no. Nike's not for me. Sorry, guys. I'm a Reebok guy. And all the Reebok stuff was ugly as hell, so I looked like an idiot. But
it's funny. I went on a 10 to 12 year bender, actually longer than that, 15 to 20. Where this is actually not a joke. Where the only shoes I wear on an everyday basis were Reebok Classics, and I finally have just recently kicked that addiction.
Reebok like the dad shoes,
the dad ones. Well. So but not the black or the white ones. I would always wear like gray or like blue or navy. They go with a lot of things. They're very comfortable.
They do. It's what you are nothing if not practical. Everybody's saying
they're not quite like Air Force One, Pete Carroll, Nike level, but yeah, they're getting there, and they're not quite New Balance. Like that N doesn't take up 60% of the side of the shoe the way it does on New Balance. But
yeah, the ends are very large on the New Balance thing. But yeah, Nike, if you're listening, Nike, higher ups, consider taking that swoosh off the back because I'm absolutely triggered over it.
Well, and you're outside the 18 to 34 demographic though, so your opinion means absolutely nothing.
I still immediately spend every dollar I make. So there you go.
Doesn't matter. Your opinion means absolutely nothing since you're over the age of 34. Time to move on from Nike. We're moving on to a topic that I thought we would never be able to stop talking about, and that is Odell Beckham, who did not play football in the year 2022. Denny's played 21 games since 2019, 0 of which came last season, and yet he is somehow the most tweeted about athlete in the NFL.
Maybe
and has agents and like PR firms just working overtime. Like Odell, he's working out. Odell, I saw him at DFW. Just maybe here the Cowboys might be interested. Non-stop Odell Beckham leaks and chatter from fans. Even though he's on the wrong side of 30 and has one of the most concerning injury histories in the entire league, he has found a new home. He's received a shockingly high salary, like shockingly high salary of $15 million for a guy who, not only over 30, not only with the injury history, he's coming off the second tear of his ACL, I forget which knee, for a team, I guess, just truly desperate for receiver help, a team that is transitioning from Greg Roman's fire and brimstone run-based offense to Todd Monken's very, very pass-happy offense. We don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. I'm just saying a lot of things, expressing my shock, basically, this deal. What do you think about Odell Beckham landing for 1 year, $15 million with the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, he fits the Ravens archetype, right? Wrong side of 30, injury history, probably watched, and bang, we got you. You got to come play in Baltimore.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
We did. They did. No, it's not good. I mean, for fantasy, I should say. Now, if Beckham's ideal landing spot for fantasy would have been in a somewhat pass heavy to very pass heavy offense without a clear cut target dominator. Okay. No teams come to mind. I'm not saying that if he landed in these 5 spots, I'm just saying that would be the ideal.
Yeah. Denny creating a straw man that doesn't exist.
That's what I'm paid to do. But he lands in the complete opposite situation, where he lands in an offense where the targets are dominated by Mark Andrews, just to give folks a feel for that domination. Last year, 29% target share for Mark Andrews. That was 5th among not tight ends, but all pass catchers last year. He was 10th in overall target share the year before, and his 30% air yard share since the start of the 2021 season is insane, and second behind only Travis Kelce among tight ends. So you have that. You have Rashad Bateman maybe ascending, into a wide receiver 1-ish role. Now I say wide receiver 1, not number 1 pass catcher. That's Andrews. So, and you have Todd Monken, who has used in several of his stops in college and the pros, used a lot of 2 tight end sets. You have Isaiah Likely there.
Music to the Ravens' ears.
Look, you have Lamar. If Lamar returns, it's not going to be pass heavy. Okay, let's just say that it's going to
be. It will be pass heavier. It will be pass heavier.
Right. It could be balanced. And I just wanted to read something from last month. Ryan Mink from Ravens.com talked about Todd Monken and what he may or may not do with the Ravens offense. What did you say?
He said he's a good reporter, Ryan Mink.
Yeah. And so, I'll spare you some of the details here, but it says, quote, overall, I think Monken will make the Ravens more balanced and capable of playing different ways. It's no secret that Baltimore has to improve its passing attack, and I think Monken will accomplish that. But you still have a rushing quarterback if Lamar comes back. And honestly, I'm kind of out on secondary pass catchers in offenses quarterbacked by rushing guys, and I don't know. I don't know where Beckham's volume comes from here.
It is weird that Mark Andrews is, of course, like the vortex at the center of like the Ravens targets universe. So that is true. It's also true that even in the most run-heavy offenses, you need a viable second target, and there's always a backup, like tertiary targets guy. And it's probably a good landing spot for Beckham from that perspective, but it may be a bad landing spot in that it's like so wide open that he might get like forced into the number one role if Rashad Bateman isn't healthy or like ready to take the next step, and that would be very, very bad for Odell Beckham. I think really, really just like needs to be like a role player or like a secondary piece at this stage with his age, injury history, all that. And there's also a scenario too then where Rashad Bateman does take a step forward. Nelson Aguilar is honestly one of the better like role playing receivers in the NFL. I mean, we kind of laughed at that signing, but he is good at what he does. It was kind of hard to tell in New England because they're not good at what they do with the passing attack. Man, and then like James Prochet and Devin Duvernay. I mean, I guess I don't know if they will get targets, but I think he needed to be like somewhere that had a very I don't know. I guess maybe Mark Andrews is that guy. I thought he needed to be somewhere with like a clear-cut, defined number one receiver. I guess Mark Andrews does fit that bill. I don't think it could be like the worst landing spot where there's at least he doesn't have to be like the guy, but it could be like the worst of both worlds where it does remain very run-heavy. Mark Andrews' target share remains like abnormally high for a number one, and then Beckham is just needed for more than he can give at this point in the receiver core, and it's just very bad all around.
I could see this turning into something like, maybe not as extreme, but something like when Julio Jones signed with Tampa last year, where people started to chase him. And he got up to like the 8th round of 12-team drafts. Like that was really rich for a guy 33 years old, I think Julio was last year, and hadn't had a good, healthy season in 3 years. It's the same deal. I know Beckham's not that old, but 30.
It's a great comp. I mean, he's over 30. I mean, that's the only number that really matters.
Spring chicken, right? I will say just to give listeners an idea, what target share means in different offenses, because we remember last year being like, oh man, Kyle Pitts has a 35% target share. Well, it came out to 6 targets, so it's not great.
That's on the season.
6 targets all year. So just to give you an idea, so Demarcus Robinson in the second half of the season last year for Baltimore played 9 games, saw a 21% target share that was trailing only Mark Andrews, who had a 25% share, but that worked out to only 5 targets per game. Okay, so this offense, it's going to have to change dramatically, and Beckham's going to have to leapfrog Rashad Bateman in order to, possibly justify what his ADP will be. I promise you, his ADP will be ridiculous.
Denny, I'm about to say a very political name, but this is actually not about politics. Donald Trump, or some of our listeners may have heard of him, became president in the fall of 2016. He assumed the oath of office on January 20th, 2017. A lot has happened in that time, as you may be aware. In that time, Odell Beckham has scored 21 touchdowns in 6 seasons.
That's not a lot.
The entire Donald Trump era of American history, Odell Beckham has 21 touchdowns. Like, I just feel like we're just like chasing ghosts here.
Right.
I
do think we should leave politics out of it.
We should. Yeah, I shouldn't even say his name.
Yeah, but I mean, people
not to get political.
Yeah, look, you can't even mark time. You can't even mark eras by presidents anymore.
Yeah, I mean, 6 touchdowns. I mean, that feels like many lifetimes, to many American citizens, and he scored 21 touchdowns in that time span.
I think the name value, especially in casual leagues is going to skyrocket him to a point where, and also the hype, if Lamar comes back, Lamar is going to be like, yeah, man, I can't wait to work with OBJ. Like, I can't believe we have him.
This could be a big how do you say that word? Peon? Olive branch to Lamar Jackson. Like, listen, we're trying to finally actually sign receivers. Maybe they're friends.
How about draft one?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they still will, actually. Perhaps this is an olive branch to Lamar Jackson where, listen, we know you weren't happy about the Greg Roman system, which Lamar has said, and like his receivers have hinted at. Like, we're trying to get right. Like, we're even willing to overpay for a guy,
Yes.
But
wrong guy, in my opinion. Wrong guy.
So, fantasy, over under wide receiver 3, Denny. Top 36.
Oh,
23.
I'd have to say under at the moment.
I would too. He needs a lot to go right to become viable again. Just like a lot. This is the second ACL tear of the same knee. That's just very, very, very few people have come back from it. And the ones who have tended to be like in their mid-20s. And he's not 31 during the 2023 season. So eye-opening money, not a lot to get excited about in fantasy. Denny, ESPN's Adam Schefter reports at least 6 teams have inquired about trading up to number 3 overall with the Arizona Cardinals in the draft, a.k.a. to get the 3rd best quarterback in this draft. We have coming up in 3 weeks. It seems like C.J. Stroud is going number 1. Seems like Bryce Young is going number 2. Number 3, could be Anthony Richardson. I was about to say it could be Will Levis. Probably can't be Will Levis. Some people are claiming it could be Hendon Hooker,
right? Even
though he's 25 years old and coming off a catastrophic knee injury. Is there any team and any specific quarterback you want to move up to number 3? Because it does seem like this is happening. And like, why would it not be happening? The Cardinals do have their quarterback in Kyler Murray. They have holes all over the roster. They're like in a textbook. They have to trade back and accumulate draft capital. I think it will happen. Is there anyone in particular you have your eye on trading up to number 3?
Well, I don't know who I want to get the boot, like for the like current starting quarterbacks. I guess if the Raiders traded up into the top 3,
say something fun, man.
Oh man, no, it could be. What I'm saying is, it could, if they trade up to number 3 and they take a guy like Anthony Richardson, not a guy like him. If they take Anthony Richardson, that is catastrophic for Davante Adams. So
it's catastrophic for Anthony Richardson. He needs to end up with someone who will actually develop him.
That goes without saying. Yeah, but I do think that, like, for the fantasy values of pass catchers in these offenses who could trade up, the Titans, obviously are one. Who else? The Falcons.
There's a lot of suspects here. It could be the Colts moving up 1 spot to number 3 just to ensure they get their guy. It could be the Seahawks. I think there's been some Seahawks and Anthony Richardson chat.
There have been a lot, yeah.
They pick 5th. It could be the Lions, who are at the stage where they are 1 player away. Like, they convince themselves Anthony Richardson is that 1 player. The Lions could be the team. The Raiders, of course, have chatter. I think the Falcons at 8 should really seriously consider doing this. And I think they would be maybe a type of a good landing spot for like a raw athlete like Anthony Richardson at the quarterback position, where like the pressure can be off a little bit at the beginning. He can actually be allowed. He can maybe start still as a rookie, but be allowed to be brought along slowly as a passer. I think the Falcons would make a lot of sense. But beyond that, then it's the Titans are like kind of like the last chance saloon for like the teams that would like conceivably have the draft capital to move up, because it's not going to happen with the Commanders, so on and so forth.
This is basically, I know I've read the Hendon Hooker stuff. James Palmer from NFL Network said multiple teams are calling him their QB3.
It's a friend of the show, James Palmer, by the way. Maybe we'll have him back on again this summer.
Absolutely. And behind Stroud and Young in no particular order. So but I still think this is the Anthony Richardson sweepstakes here. Like who's going to make that? Whoever lands at 3, they're not taking Will Levis, right?
No, I don't think so. Unless it's someone who's like head over heels in love. Oof. But it seems like the classic Will Levis. We would like to think front offices don't think like this, but it seems like the classic situation. Even if there is a front office, like in their dream scenario, they just had the number 3 pick and they would take Will Levis. They wouldn't want to like take the heat for making that move. I don't think anyone would make that move for Will Levis.
I mean, look, Will Levis has a lot going against him. Okay, there's the accuracy issues. My guy is too muscular. You got to tone it down.
I was gonna say, and now I've heard people complaining he's in too good a shape.
No, not too good a shape. There's a difference between being in good shape and looking like a bodybuilder. No quarterback looks like that. Come on,
Until now.
You got this guy has to leave the weight room for 8 weeks. Okay, you got to get skinny, Will. He's putting mayonnaise in his coffee. He's eating bananas whole on Instagram. Whole. I'm talking about with the cover.
Is that a thing? With the cover, Denny, the more popularly known as the peel.
The peel, whatever. I'm not a banana expert. I've never even seen a banana. Anyway, he has a lot. There's a lot of question marks. I mean, he's probably a good football player. I'm not so sure he's a good quarterback.
Speaking of eating, so that's a thing. They actually eat a banana with the peel.
I mean, like the guys who like eat like 7 steaks a day.
Yeah.
And like a whole stick of butter, for no reason. Like it's that kind of guy who's like, oh, I'm gonna eat the whole banana.
Yeah. There's a Patrick Redford for the excellent website Defector, Denny. Recently, he tweeted in the preseason that he's a Sacramento Kings fan. He tweeted in the preseason that if the Sacramento Kings made the NBA playoffs, he would eat an entire onion like it were an apple. And this has come to pass. He did it last week on Defector. No. And it is worth checking out if you have not seen it.
That's pretty gross. Oof.
But yeah, Denny, it is known. The Zoomers are calling it the peel.
The cover.
That's what the cover. And then I, of course, removed the banana cover. And that's how I eat my bananas.
I'll admit it. But I mean, come on, no. So they're not taking Will. Let's get back to the.
What were we talking about? Will Levis.
We're talking about Will Levis. We're talking about Anthony Richardson. Whoever lands at Anthony Richardson is going to be pressed into playing him early. I don't care what anybody says about. We're going to develop him. We're going to give him 5 years on the bench. But nobody's doing that. Okay, he's gonna be playing within probably the first month or 2 of the season, and he could be great for fantasy. Okay, I'm not saying that he's not going to be good for fantasy, but boy, is he going to crush the pass catchers in his offense.
I want it to be the Falcons, even though I don't want Kyle Pitts and Drake London to suffer. I just think, like, philosophically, what they've got going on there, that it would be a pretty interesting fit for Anthony. And Arthur Smith has had success with like a quarterback that you don't want passing all the time, and Ryan Tannehill.
Oh,
I just think maybe it's an interesting fit.
Anthony Richardson ends up in Atlanta. You're talking about there will be games where he throws 12 passes.
Yeah, I mean, there will be months where he throws 12 passes.
I mean, then we're going to talk about target share. 45% target share for Drake London, 3 targets.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he'll set the record for target share. And then he'll come in 122nd in the league. So we'll see what happens. But someone's going to trade it to number 3, and they're not going to be doing it to take a defensive end. So fascinating situation to follow. Denny, Breece Hall, who is recovering from a torn ACL, pretty bad knee injury. In the words of his coach, Robert Saleh, looks fantastic.
Yeah.
The Jets are expecting him to be ready for week 1. I mean, this is just coach speak on the one hand, but also, I mean, it's not coach speak we get all the time. Last year with J.K. Dobbins, the Ravens never even came close to saying he'd be ready for week 1. And, of course, he was not healthy to begin the season. So it is notable that the Jets are willing to go on the record with this, with Breece Hall and his recovery. Mm-hmm. And again, we've learned just not to take this thing for granted. So it does seem like very good news, but do we still need to be, circumspect, cautious, and like not get ahead of ourselves, basically drafting Breece Hall coming off a torn ACL?
Maybe a little bit, but the Dobbins injury was complicated. Like that we knew that pretty early on, that it wasn't like your run-of-the-mill ACL situation. With Breece Hall, it seems from what I've read about it that it is more standard kind of ACL injury, and it happened in late September or early October. So
it was at least October. It might have honestly been November.
No, really? No.
I'm looking it up.
Look it up. I'm going to keep talking. You look it up. So I do think that you can
It happened during the preseason. No, it was October 23rd.
Oh, okay. That is later than I thought. But I do want to say that Breece Hall, as listeners know, was excellent in his limited time in his 6 weeks of the regular season. Led all running backs in yards before contact per carry, was top 15 in yards after contact per carry, and second behind only Derrick Henry in yards per route run, which once again raises the question, why is Derrick Henry not catching more passes? Anyway.
It's I mean, we kind of know why, because we see the ball clang off his hands. We also have seen with our own eyes, they throw him like one screen a month, and every single time it's an 82-yard touchdown.
I mean, the guy gets going, and defenders are literally running out of bounds to avoid.
It's like the classic. Like he's like like people are just like roadkill, like rolling off of him, like as they desperately try to grab his leg. Maybe throw that man a few more screens.
And Breece Hall was also a target magnet last year. So he has everything going for him. I think you're probably going to get him at a slight injury discount, and I wouldn't hate that.
And you have to remember with Breece Hall too, their most important factor. It pains me to say it, but I've said it many times on this podcast. Michael Carter's not good, so that helps.
Once again, the Carters are being attacked.
I know. Michael of House Carter, it's not very good. It's a shame.
Yeah, I do have to concede. Michael Carter is probably not good. So
probably not good.
We're gonna go forward with that understanding into 2023.
So yeah, my final word on Breece Hall would be: it is coach speak, but been reading coach speak for over a decade here at Rotoworld. There are all sorts of different flavors of it, and it is notable when it's April and the coach is like actually willing to say they'll be out there week 1, because a lot of times, even when it's clear they're going to be, they won't say that. So very, very notable that Robert Saleh had enough confidence to say that about what we hope is a starting running back in 2023. Denny, what you hope is the Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver is Richie James, who was quite good for the Giants last year. It's kind of an unsung hero of the Giants. He's now a Chief. I mean, he signed like in the 4th wave of free agency. When you sign on April 7th, which was the day he signed, you're not even guaranteed to make the 53-man roster.
Right.
But he certainly ended up in the right spot where there's a targets need, amazing offense, designed amazingly well. A guy who did really exceed his expectations last year, since his expectations were non-existent for the New York Giants. Very, very interesting landing spot for a guy. I mean, quietly had 57 catches. What are we telling the folks about Richie James ending up with the Kansas City Chiefs?
I mean, what do we say about non-Kelsey pass catchers in this offense? Like, they're interchangeable, and I think that likely he's going to be a rotational slot guy in the Kansas City offense. They lost Mecole Hardman, who ran 53% of his routes from the slot last season. Sky Moore was used about half the time in the slot. Juju, obviously they lost him, let him walk to New England. He had a 43% slot rate. So they are looking to fill some slot snaps. I don't think that best ball. I know our good buddy Davis Maddock was very excited about Richie James. I don't know, Davis.
What a surprise!
If you can say I'm in on a non-Kelsey pass catcher in this offense that treats all pass catchers like they're nobody, even if they're good, like Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney still can't get a foot in the door. So I'm not too excited, I should say.
We should have Davis on the show sometime soon, by the way. Richie James, to me, he could just be being signed as like a returner type guy. Yeah. He did a lot of that. That's kind of why he was drafted by the 49ers, I think. And Sky Moore had some issues returning the football last year, and they might want a more reliable option there. I will say, it's too bad Richie James is already 27. I kept thinking he's like 24 or 25 because he's only been in the league since 2018, which I guess that math wouldn't really add up. But I thought he was only like 25 or 26. He is 27. You might be like, oh, it's just 1 year, but there is a difference there. Not much projection left for Richie James, basically. No. But he produced in a much less talent bereft, I don't know, bad offense last year.
Something
not
like
bad.
That.
I don't want the Dable Army to. lack of talent in the Giants offense, and he stepped up. And he's going to a much better situation. But I think your reading of the situation is correct, where there's no need to be like singing best ball songs about Richie James.
Yeah, and I was actually just looking because Richie James was among the league leaders in slot receptions last year. He had 54 on the year. I'm sorry, 54 targets. He had 45 receptions from the slot, but he was not good. He was not good from it. He was 40th in yards per route run from the slot. I mean, that could have something to do with how conservative and sort of inefficient the Giants offense was with Daniel Jones. And I personally, I would say, go out on a ledge and say that Patrick Mahomes is better than Daniel Jones.
I mean, I think some members of Giants Army are in the mood where they would dispute that. I don't know, man.
Okay, I know Daniel Jones makes one good throw, and they'll be like, "Oh, this would be on SportsCenter if Mahomes did that." Wow.
I've had everyone in Giants Nation telling me I had Brian Dable too low in my coach rankings. I believe I had him 15th, which might sound low until you look at the list and see that there's actually a lot of really good coaches right now. And it was just 1 year. I gotta hedge a little.
Right. And what are you supposed to do? Put him above Harbaugh and Belichick?
Oh man, Harbaugh is another one where like the worm has turned on Harbaugh. We're like, oh, Harbaugh, like apparently there's like a new school of Ravens fans that just hate Harbaugh and like couldn't believe I still had him ranked as an elite coach. And
well, that's because we said it the other couple weeks ago. Harbaugh did the analytics thing and it didn't work, and that's the worst of all worlds, really, because the fans see that and they go, "Hey, man, it didn't work. Stop with that. We got to start punting from the opponent's 40-yard line. We like that now."
I was very surprised by that feedback. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got to the piece. Is the Ravens fans have turned on John Harbaugh.
What are the Ravens doing analytically, honestly? I mean, they're drafting safeties and centers. They're signing Odell Beckham. Come on. I mean, to a monster contract. I mean, relative to what he probably would have signed for elsewhere. I don't get their personnel stuff is out of control bad lately.
It's almost like one of the greatest GMs in league history, Ozzie Newsome, retiring was bad.
It has proven good and bad things might not be the same.
They might not be the same thing. But if you have not checked out my coach's piece yet, please check it out. It's still up on the website. It's very long. No one's gonna.
It's good. It's a good read, though. It's a good read, and you probably won't. As a reader, you probably won't become enraged because you don't say anything inflammatory. You straight down the middle. You spit the facts.
I do. I am spitting facts.
You report. They decide.
It's true, and I'm going to be spitting some facts about our draft guides and our app right now. So please listen. Every season is draft season. Get your Rotoworld Draft Guide bundle today and dominate your football, baseball, and basketball drafts. It's packed with profiles, rankings, and projections. Order today and get all 3 Rotoworld Draft Guides for the price of 2. Plus, use promo code BARRY and save an extra 20% at checkout. That is promo code BERRY to save an extra 20% at checkout. And of course, don't forget, download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It is available in your app store today. Denny, before the break, I mentioned my article. Now we come out of the break to mention one of your many articles writing about tight ends on April 10th.
It's questionable whether we can take anything away from it, but I thought that it'd be good to look at.
It is, and you've been pumping out amazing stuff all off season, and I seriously don't know how you come up with all these ideas, but very thankful you do. So there's content on the website, and of course fodder for our podcast. And yes, today it is on target commanding tight ends, or maybe take us through the conceit of the article. What is the target? Maybe tight ends who commanded more targets than he thought last season and could continue that in 2023. Am I correct?
Yeah, mostly like tight ends who had interesting target per route run profiles and how those may have changed last year compared to previous years. Of course, for one of these guys, he's a rookie, Chigo Okonkwo from Tennessee, so that doesn't apply to him. But mostly, is this guy commanding targets when he's out there? And the cover guy for this piece was Pat Freiermuth. And I went into this, I did not expect that. Okay. I was not saying I got to find some stuff to get Freiermuth on the front page of the website. On the list. Okay. No, no one from NBC headquarters told me to do that. Okay, so
not yet.
It just happened.
Our demands are getting more complicated and complex as we get deeper into the litigation.
Now, I will say, the handwritten letter I got the other day telling me that I had to write about Zach Gentry, the tight end for Pittsburgh. Now, that's going to be tough.
If you had read the letter to the end, you would, of course, know to never mention the letter.
Oh, wow. So, I do have to read more. Freiermuth. So, just so folks know, any tight end who ran a reasonable number of routes, I made the cutoff at 100 for last year, which is not a lot, but had to cut it off somewhere. Any tight end who has an over 20% target per route run rate is doing pretty well in commanding targets. And Freiermuth last season had a 22.1% target per route run rate. That's higher than his first year by about 2%. And mostly this is just, Kenny Pickett picking up, man, I cannot see where Ben Roethlisberger left off, which is a lot of check downs, a lot of dump offs. And that's good. That's good for possibly the Steelers running backs going forward. It's good for Deontay Johnson, and it's good for Pat Freiermuth. He only ran a route on 72% of Pittsburgh's dropbacks. We'd like to see that, definitely that rate in the 80s, possibly even the 90s to make sure that, he can get there on a weekly basis. But I think Freiermuth profiles as, in PPR leagues as a guy who can be a plug and play starter, not anyone who can be elite, I don't think, except for if he has crazy touchdown luck, aka variance. But the target per route run data is pretty good on the Muth.
And as we talked about it recently, I can't remember why. This isn't your father's Steelers receiver core, where it's not nearly as deep as we're used to. It's not like it's shallow, but it's just Deontay Johnson, who, as we know, is one of the more inefficient receivers in the entire NFL. And then it's George Pickens, who had an okay rookie year, but you're talking about target commanding for Pat Freiermuth, which we know is kind of a skill. And not kind of a skill, it is a skill. Mm-hmm. And George Pickens didn't command as many targets as we expected as a rookie, despite his really imposing physical profile. And so it's maybe a situation that could continue, and the target share could actually grow for Pat Freiermuth in 2023. The Steelers could draft a receiver. I mean, Kevin Colbert's now gone as GM. He's one of the best wide receiver drafters in NFL history. So maybe they won't have the same luck they had drafting receivers, but they could draft a receiver and throw someone else into this mix. But it looks like a situation where Pat Freiermuth is primed to just continue seeing really big target shares and perhaps continuing to grow his target share.
And Pickett last year was 24th in average depth of target among quarterbacks. So we could get another season. It just looks like Pickett's the kind of guy who is going to feed his short area targets more often than not. It's not good for George Pickens. It is good for someone like the Muth.
And no, there's no way to transition that. Who's the next player? I was trying to think of a good transition.
Yeah. So this is to offer some copium, as the kids call it, to Kyle Pitts drafters from last year. Listen to me. Your process wasn't wrong. Okay.
So I know, beginning the offseason by telling people to just draft Kyle Pitts yet again is what we're doing.
No, I still don't know where I stand, but the data is intriguing. Okay. His target per route run last year was 26.5%. That's outrageous for a tight end. That's a lot for a receiver. It's crazy for a tight end. His career rate is 22.6%. There was a stretch last year, a 4-week stretch, where Pitts was particularly dominant in the run-heavy Atlanta offense. He had a 33% target per route run rate. So he was, in other words, he was getting a target every third pass route he was running, which is insane. He is a commander of the targets. Whether those will be there for him to have is another question.
So I'm surprised he hit the 100 route threshold that you had for your article.
Come on.
Too soon? Would you rather have Desmond Ridder or Anthony Richardson as Kyle Pitts' quarterback?
Ridder, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, because they're not like they're not gonna let Richardson drop back and throw. Like they're like Ritter at least will have some, produce some pass volume, even if it's not good. It's more routes, it's some pass volume. They're not gonna have any with Richardson.
He did have more pass volume than Marcus Mariota did, even though he was not in any discernible way better than Marcus Mariota. And
one thing, Arthur Smith, I'm pretty sure you're listening. Try to use Kyle Pitts in the slot more. I mean, he was
maybe get mismatches for the 7'5" tight end / receiver that you have.
He was 14th in tight end slot rate last year. What is that? 14. There were 13. You're talking about Tyler Conklin running more slot routes than him.
You know what the lawyers require you to call Tyler Conklin. Come on.
I know, Conk Daddy.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, and I don't love saying that. I'm actually saying it quiet so my kids can't hear me. But yeah, so Pitts was really good from the slot. Let's get him in the slot more often, Arthur Smith.
It would be very traumatizing to hear your grown adult father say "Conk Daddy."
It would be.
Yeah, I'm whispering it too. I have 4 children, as you know, and they cannot hear me ever say the words "conk" and "daddy."
So that number is stable. The 4, it hasn't.
It is, yeah. More children have not materialized,
emerged
in the last podcast. Yeah, no, yeah. We did just recently audit the family, but it's still 4.
Okay, do a head count. Yeah,
still 4. Rick, was Marcus Mariota a noble failure, by the way, with the Falcons? Was that something that needed to be tried, or no?
No. That was a horrible experiment. What was the upside?
Well, I just feel like they didn't even run the experiment properly. Like they still just didn't let him do anything. But because he doesn't like to, though. He just doesn't. He's not aggressive.
And he also hated life there. I mean, he abandoned the team eventually.
That's
what? Yeah. Oh yeah. He stopped. He stopped going to. He stopped attending practices and stuff. Once he was benched, or once he was.
Oh, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah. Oh, it was something. I know I say this a lot, but it was something that the media really didn't talk about much. The Falcons beat writers were like, "Hey, we don't know where Mariota is," and he's like pretending he's doing something else, but the team doesn't know. Anyway, yeah, no, that was terrible. They should have just gone with Ritter from week 1.
Do you remember what team Marcus Mariota is on now?
Oh, I do, because he's going to have extreme fantasy relevance this year. The Eagles.
I was hoping you didn't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, he ended up in the right spot. Denny, did Chig Okonkwo end up in the right spot? Tight end Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, right. I mean, 26% target per route run share in 2022, which was really good. It comes in one of the most conservative run-heavy offenses in the league, as you know, and really he just didn't run that many routes. He wasn't much over the 100 route threshold there, so he will be touchdown reliant. I think it's good. It's good to know about this data, because if something happens, if Mike Vrabel sees the light or something and they pass more, they become more balanced, they have Chig Okonkwo out there running routes, then based on last year's production, that he can get there without running all the routes. Okay, like he can run, he can have like a 60 to 70% route rate and still sort of kind of get there for fantasy. But beware. I think that people are probably a little too excited to draft Chig in best ball right now.
You were supposed to say it. They're a little too excited to get Chiggy with it.
Oh, man.
You're supposed to say, but it was an amazing season for a 4th-round rookie tight end, and like we do have to keep our eye on the Okonkwo situation, because they don't usually do what he did, especially in that situation, a really, really bad situation. So it just wouldn't be surprised if he was someone like the whole league just slept on, because he came out of this really small, terrible football school that no one on our podcast attended, called Maryland.
Jeez.
Yeah, school.
He did. I mean, I don't know the first thing about Maryland football.
I know, it's ridiculous. Why? You got to follow it. It's fun.
There's no. They're in the Big Ten. I'm not watching Big Ten.
Yeah, no, that's true. Actually, you can't watch Big Ten football. Can't do it.
Sounds awful.
Who's the final man on your list for the fifth member that I added that I'm going to force you to talk about?
TJ Hawkinson. So his target per route rate profile changed pretty significantly once he was dealt to the Vikings at midseason last year. 22.5% rate on his target on his routes. That is higher than his 20.9% rate on his career, and way higher than it was like in 2020 and parts of 2021. So in other words, he was very inefficient, like lots of dump downs, lots of short area stuff. But man, I mean, TJ Hawkinson was a PPR scam.
He was. Year. I mean, I think it was something beyond scam. Like he was like one of those things where like he was skimming money for years from management at whatever firm he worked for. It went like far beyond scam.
Let me tell you. Let me try to quantify the scammy nature of the fantasy points that Hawkinson scored in the second half of last season. Only Travis Kelce among tight ends notched more expected fantasy points than Hawkinson over the second half. Hawkinson was in line with Tyler Higbee in yards per route run. Not good. So we have the fantasy points of a Kelce, and we have the profile of a Tyler Higbee. I don't know if Hawkinson is good. I will say that his role in that Kevin O'Connell offense as the clear-cut number 2 guy
and the Higbee.
And the clear-cut short area receiver is very valuable for fantasy.
They got to get more out of him because you mentioned a lot of the advanced stats. There's one stat that is never as telling as you think, unless it's at one of the extremes, is yards per catch. And TJ Hawkinson's was at an extreme where he averaged 8.6 yards per catch. Where like that's solid for a running back, but if you're a tight end and it's under 10, that's like an immediate red flag, and like just zero efficiency from this guy, or zero like explosiveness, and only 3 touchdowns and 86 targets. It's like the targets were just out of this world. And now Adam Thielen is gone, so maybe he can get more of like a traditional red zone, like dunking role.
Yeah.
But we need more efficiency from TJ Hawkinson.
Absolutely. That would be nice to get, because I don't know if we can continue to get away with the scam throughout this coming year.
That's what I was getting at. We're like, I mean, the Vikings have to see the same things we're seeing, and like maybe they're thinking they shouldn't be giving TJ Hawkinson 8 to 9 targets per game.
Right. I mean, listen, he was with the team for like 2 days before his first game against Washington, and he got 10 targets.
It was seriously really, really wild. By the way, producer Adam weighs in on the University of Maryland. He says they stink.
It does seem that way. Did they play in a bowl game this year?
I don't know. You're supposed to know these. I can't follow Maryland football.
I think they did, and I
can't follow the Big Ten.
I think it was like the Punch Bowl.
The Punch Bowl. They were in the Banana Peel Bowl.
The banana cover.
Yeah, the Banana Cover Bowl. That's what in the South they do call it a cover. I mean, come on. Obviously, they call it a cover, and since they have to have a weird word for everything in the Southern United States, but up here, in Missouri and the heart of this union, we call it a peel. So
I like that the heart literally has to be in the middle.
Yeah, it does. The center of the United States. I think it used to be in Missouri, but now it's in Kansas.
Producer Adam is telling us that Maryland beat NC State 16-12 in the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Well, you know what happens then is the head coach gets mayoed. And I feel like we've talked about this maybe on the pod, that your head coach got mayoed. I can't remember. Is it DJ Durkin or something? I can't remember who the Maryland head coach is. Oh, no, it's Mike Loxley. Oh, I remember Mike Loxley getting mayoed. It was quite a sight.
It's the grossest thing that happened in the whole sports year.
Yeah, Mike Loxley got mayoed. I remember now. He's got what the Zoomers would call a rather large bald dome, and he got covered in mayo. And it's worth checking out. A real fan would have known, Denny.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm not.
A real Maryland fan would have known. So yeah, I feel like for some reason on this podcast we haven't talked much about Darren Waller being a New York Giant yet. And you were talking about some of the receivers kind of like in his target class. I just want to talk about maybe your initial thoughts on Darren Waller in 2023 with the Giants, where we talked about the state of the Giants' skill core in 2022 is that Richie James was one of their most valuable players. That's like how bad the group was. So just what should the expectations be for Darren Waller and this Brian Daboll offense in New York?
Well, I mean, Waller had some time in the Vegas offense before Devontae Adams and was, a target hog, a 25% target share in 10 games in 2021. The season before that, we're looking it up very quickly here, 28% target share in 16 games, which was like dwarfed everybody else. Nelson Aguilar was second on that team with 15%. So yeah, I mean, Waller has a history of being able to step into offenses without an alpha receiver and just soaking up targets. What comes to mind is opening Monday night one year against the Chargers, where he had 20 targets.
That's right.
Crazy.
That
didn't happen again.
Ball.
Yeah, but so I mean, he would seem to be now. The only issue is age and all the injuries that Waller has had. I mean, he's turning 31 in September. He struggled with various injuries, both lower body and upper body, over the past 3 seasons. So I do think that needs to factor into it. But yeah, I mean, there's a target vacancy there in New York. Hopefully he can fill it.
And you see a team go out and aggressively get a guy like that, where they have such an acute need for a targets dominator. Maybe the Giants can end up drafting a receiver like in the first 60 picks, something to keep an eye on. But yeah, it could be like a Waller Sans in the Big Apple. Sorry, I mean, it's April 10th.
It does. It also strikes me as, I think, presumptuous for the Giants to take Waller at this advanced age with all the injuries. I don't know.
Well, the Giants are feeling it, man. They're running it back with Daniel Jones, which I don't know. Wouldn't have done it myself.
Well, I mean, they probably had the worst starting tight end in NFL last year with Daniel
They did.
Jones.
That's true. And then he got poked in the eye and missed like 6 weeks.
It was horrific. They had to cart him off. They were I thought he was going to lose the eye.
Yeah, that was really, really bad.
But
great way to end the show.
He was. But hey, Daniel Bellinger, he recovered, and he was not good.
No, you need to. First thing you do after the show's over is go to YouTube and look up Mike Loxley getting mayoed. Check it out. Just trust me.
You got to do it.
You do have to do it. So you got to listen to the show, which you've already done if you're still here. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back on Thursday with Denny. Denny, anything in the pipeline right now? Or
we are looking into EPA data from the past couple of years and seeing what that can tell us for drafts this year.
Oh, wow. That'll be really cool. Always a lot of interesting stuff to turn up when you dig into the EPA, which I had to do a lot during my coaching article.
It's a heavy lift, many are saying, and it's taking a little while longer than I.
That's fine. Long for you, getting an article out is still very quick for most people.
Right. It's 12 hours.
So we are looking forward to that. So for Denny Carter, I am Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back later in the week for some draft talk.